From the southeastern corner of western North Carolina, this is Folklore. I'm your host, James Hernishin. It's only just the beginning of spring, but if you consider yourself an engaged member of the Saluda community, it's never too early to start thinking about Coon Dog Day, which is held each year on the first Saturday after July 4th. There was a time when Coon Dog Day was kind of like the third rail of politics in Saluda. No one was going to touch it, let alone challenge its very existence, because that would be political suicide. Over the years, though, what was once the biggest celebration in the county started to lose its luster. After the city ended the prohibition on the sale of alcohol back in 2005, some folks started complaining about drunken partiers ruining the wholesome nature of the festival, particularly the square dancing at the tail end of the day's events. For some reason, the elaborate floats that made the Coon Dog Day parade such a draw for thousands of visitors and residents stopped being quite so elaborate. The racoon hounds that inspired the whole thing, where were they anyway? And then COVID hit in 2019, and the whole thing had to be canceled for 2 years. That gave citizens a chance to mull over whether Coon Dog Day was really worth the effort and the money. Someone has to pay for the police presence, unless all the officers agree to volunteer their time. And then there's golf carts to rent, shuttle buses to run, and a long list of organizational tasks that come with shutting down Highway 176 for a day. It's not like Saluda has plenty of money in the bank. For one thing, the liability from the ancient sewer and water system isn't going away anytime soon. It turns out that not everyone in Saluda loves Coon Dog Day, particularly those shop on Main Street who find it more of a hassle and an expense than a business opportunity. So, a few weeks ago, Saluda's Board of Commissioners held a public hearing devoted to reconsidering the future of Coon Dog Day. The consensus was that the summer's version would be a scaled-back event, a lot like last year's, which was much quieter and less ambitious than pre-COVID days. Everyone seems to still like the 5K run, which has been a part of the day's schedule for years, but gone are the carnival amusement park rides and oversized food trucks. And as you'll hear in my talk with Saluda Mayor Tangi Morgan, who headed the Coon Dog Day committee long before she was elected in 2021, there are the inevitable problems that come with trying to celebrate a history that isn't always squeaky clean. There will be a Coon Dog Day 2023. What happens in 2024 and beyond is an open question. And that's what we talked about at Saluda City Hall on the last official day of winter. Tangi Morgan, thanks so much for joining Folklore.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about Coon Dog Day.
Well, it's certainly something that everyone in Saluda has an opinion about.
They definitely do.
And a week or so ago, there was a public meeting that you, as the mayor of Saluda, held to talk about the future of Coon Dog Day.
Yes, we did.
So before we get into the future, let's talk about the past.
Okay, it actually started in 1963, and it actually initially was not held in city limits. It was held out at Gordon's Pond out on 176, and it actually started as a benefit dinner to try to raise money for the local coon club to buy supplies for them and different things to to keep the coon club going. And what happened is they started selling chicken dinners, and the women of that group kept getting larger and larger and larger, and they outgrew the pond. So then it come back into town, and then it took over, the whole town, it seems like. But they went from, showing the dogs actually on the street, on the pavement, and then they decided that was, not good for the dog's feet, so they moved him into the gravel parking lot in front of the park, and then it's kind of just took over. Then they moved him to the ball field because they thought they needed a bigger area, and then a couple of years ago we decided, it needs to come back into town, to kind of be the center, focal point of town, because that's what Coon Dog Day was supposed to be. Kind of like a homecoming. You see people that you haven't saw in years. It's, kind of like a celebration of the town. You see people that, you haven't seen in 20 years or you haven't seen, in weeks. But, it's arts, crafts, music, street dance, a 5K race. It's a little bit of everything. As you know, your son probably enjoys some of the, years ago, the amusement rides even. It's something, it's supposed to be a celebration of the town and something for everyone to enjoy. Not just, not just coon hunters, it's for everyone.
And it had, I mean, at least prior to COVID, when it was a really big deal, it was probably the biggest festival in Polk County.
They say it averages like 10 to 20,000 people in town.
Well, that's a lot of people for a town the size of Saluda.
Oh, most definitely. You kind of have to prepare for it, and you have to get ready for it because it's coming. And in years past, during the COVID years, we didn't really have one per se. We had some music that day because, people were in town for it anyway, so we tried to provide a little bit of music or something. And then this past year when we, started up again, after COVID, we tried to make it more like it used to be, more of a hometown feel, kind of a smaller event, because it's hard to get back from, not having one to having one. And we tried to create some open space for people so they wouldn't be all on top of each other. We tried to do more local things, which I think people appreciated because that's, it got more almost carnival-like, and we were trying to get back to where, its original roots were.
Well, I think that carnival-like is exactly what it had become, right? You had a lot of the amusement rides, like the funnel cake vendors. That's the sort of group that goes from festival to festival, from fair to fair, all summer long. And so for me, it was starting to lose any unique characteristic, right? It was becoming a generic summer festival.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to work toward in the future, is get it back to where it used to be. I mean, we don't need, 5 different ones from Raleigh coming up here and setting up street food when we have local restaurants that can provide food for the guest. And, that's what you want. You want it to be more hometown feel. You don't want it to be like a big carnival. And I think what the problem there is I think it had been costing so much to put on that's where it got out of hand. It got into, we had to somehow pay for it because we don't want the citizens to pay for it. And that's not fair to the citizens to have that burden put on them.
I mean, I did want to talk about this because at the public meeting the other day, we only really had one citizen raise kind of an objection to where things are going. And she pointed out that it cost $16,000 to mount last year's Coon Dog Day, which was a scaled back version. And then she compared that with the fact that the city decided to stop lighting most of its street lamps in town, which saved us $14,000 a year. So if the city's so strapped for cash that we can't afford to keep the street lamps on, can we really afford to mount Coon Dog Day? Right.
Well, see, that was our thinking too, is there's got to be a way of putting it on. If you're going to have it, there's got to be ideas and ways of putting it on where it doesn't, burden the citizen to put it on, because that's not fair to them. And we had worked in years past on getting sponsorships, and, that's hard to do. But, we've got to come out and let people know that, you need to support it or it's going to go in a different direction. I mean, it's going to be scaled back so much that it's, you've got to do something because it's costing too much to put on. And I think everybody loves Coon Dog Day, and we don't want to see it go away. But there's got to be a fine line of it. It shouldn't cost $16,000 to put on, and it shouldn't be the burden of the taxpayers to put it on. So there's got to be a way of getting, we did have a private, as you know, you were at that meeting, we had a private donation of $5,000 to help put it on. And that's the only way that it really is going forward this year, thanks to the nice lady. And we're not going to have that every year. So we need to think outside the box and do some outside resourcing or something to come up with cutting some of the budget off of it, because that is a huge ask for someone to give $16,000 to put on one festival.
Well, let's get to the question: who benefits? Who really wants to see Coon Dog Day survive?
I think a lot of people love Coon Dog Day because it's always been a tradition. I mean, some people say, it's gotten too big, we don't like to come to it, but other people love it. They plan their whole vacation. And I think, they talked in the meeting, they talked about that it was like a one-day festival. Well, it encompasses that whole week and the week after. So I think you're talking about benefit. I really do think that the bed and breakfast, the local Airbnbs, the restaurants, I mean, that is a great opportunity for them to make their money to survive during the wintertime. I mean, that's the biggest, that's our biggest season of the year is, that whole week and the week after.
But, and then this is something that's really hard to prove scientifically, but I think some people might say, look, our family comes for a big reunion every year to Coon Dog Day, but the truth is we would do that anyway. We all just try to do it at Coon Dog Day because Coon Dog Day is this festival we can enjoy. So does it really generate any more income, or is it just concentrate the same amount of income in a shorter amount of time? So, I mean, these are difficult things. The city doesn't have the money to pay consultants to do big studies like this sort of thing. So I guess what I'm getting at is I know there are businesses in town who say, Coon Dog Day really doesn't do a heck of a lot for us because the people who come aren't the folks who are shopping in our store, and it's actually a bit of a burden because you have to hire extra staff, you have to worry about shoplifting or breakage. So not every business in town is that keen on Coon Dog Day, right?
Right. But you can say that also about the arts festival, because there's certain businesses that might benefit and others say it doesn't benefit. So it's kind of like that's the reason we have, the arts festival, and then we have Coon Dog Day too, because it's you get different types of people for different festivals, and we want to offer it to everyone. I mean, we'd like, I would like to see Coon Dog Day be kind of scaled back to where it didn't cost as much to put on, whether we, reach out to a big corporate sponsor, if that's what we have to do, and have limitations on, what that entails, because you can't, let them have carte blanche with your town. I mean, I understand that too. And, I think that Coon Dog Day is such a homecoming that, you said family reunions, they still, people still love the street dance. They love to get out there and watch people. I mean, as well as I do, they stay till dark. I mean, having fun. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be good family fun.
Is your vision then more like the arts festival is something that can draw maybe a few thousand people to town because we got this incredible array of artists all in one spot? But Coon Dog Day is more for the locals to celebrate Saluda itself.
I think so. I think it's more a homecoming. So,
but that kind of implies that Coon Dog Day isn't really about helping businesses make money. That's secondary to the
I mean, I think Coon Dog Day has never really been about making a ton of money. I think it's more about celebrating your community. You know what I mean? I think it's like, they may come for that day and they may not buy anything in, let's say, one of the art galleries. But that's not saying that they won't come back and see a piece of art that they would, buy in the near future for, a mountain home that they've had up here for years.
Is Coon Dog Day an important element of the marketing of Saluda? Is it an opportunity for people to see, a charming historic town?
Absolutely.
And so now we have two celebrations a year, Arts Festival and Coon Dog Day. And if both of them are going to continue, they really need to appeal to different audiences. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think they do appeal to different audiences. I mean, you've attended both, or they are definitely different crowds. I mean, it seems like the arts festival draws more kind of an older clientele, I guess, whereas Coon Dog Day is more of a family. You know, you see kids, you see more kids and families for Coon Dog Day more so than you do for the arts festival. Of course, we do have an art tent at the arts festival. We do try to appeal to everyone for that.
Does the arts festival cost the city any money?
No, it's ran through the SBA. And that's what we're trying to look at, too. So that's our point, you know, and that's something we're going to have to look at. See, the Coon Dog Day is the only city-sponsored event. And that's, you know, got to be looked at, too, you know, whether it's going to become, like if the SBA wants to take it on or Downtown Foundation wants to take it on. And that's one of the avenues that, you know, is going to have to be discussed.
And I think that for like 2024 and on.
Right.
Because this year it's going to be similar to last year's.
Yes, but just more scaled down. And yeah, it's going to be kind of similar to where it was last year. A little smaller, more open space for people to actually enjoy instead of be on top of each other. More local food vendors, more local restaurant participation, local artists. We're reaching out to them. Charities. A lot of local charities are going to hopefully have a booth, so that'll be a good thing to promote their charities.
And they would have to pay a small fee.
Some of them will, yes.
Yeah. Because again, we would like it that the city isn't coughing up $16,000.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money to someone from Asheville, but
right. For a little small town, it is.
Yeah.
It's a chunk.
What about the history and the heritage of Saluda that Coon Dog Day is trying to represent? We don't have a Coon Dog club in Saluda anymore.
No, we don't. They're talking about reorganizing, but see, there's so many of them are older or have passed on, and it's just, you know, the young folks are just kind of haven't gotten it. I think they just haven't had the time to prepare and get one organized. They're talking about organizing one, though. But now the AKC always comes up from Orangeburg, South Carolina, and they do the judging for the dog show. And
they're going to be coming up this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, this brings up something else, though. The fact that you've got people from South Carolina and elsewhere. Like in the parade, a lot of the parade has historically been folks from out of town. Like you see the Hillbilly Club, right. Old cars, the jalopies. Yeah. They're not from Saluda. They're from somewhere else.
Well, you see the fire trucks from other departments, and you see a lot of people from Hendersonville come down, and they'll have a business up there, and they want to advertise their business, and they send something down, which you don't blame them for wanting to advertise it.
It's almost so like it's become a little bit disconnected from the current Saluda. So if we don't have Coon Dog Day clubs and the Hillbilly clans are from Spartanburg or whatever, what is left that is really Saluda?
Well, you're still getting some of the local businesses to put in the parade, and you're still getting a lot of the local participants. I mean, you know, the Land Trust always puts a float in. We're getting some.
Well, one of my favorite things in the past in the parade was the themed floats that would come in. I remember like an Elvis Presley space shuttle or something. I don't know.
I do too.
And we don't see a lot of that anymore. And I don't know why that happened, because, I mean, my wife's family put together a New Orleans Mardi Gras themed float one year. And it was a lot of fun to do. And I think that would be something that local, longtime Saluda folks or even summer folks could make a contribution and make that part of Coon Dog Day very special.
Well, see, used to we would get, you know, like the bank, you know, at the bank making it at the time, they would always put in one, and so did the Paces out here at, you know, Pace Construction. And I think a lot of it is people don't have the time to put things together. Their lives are so busy.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to have a shout out and get people to participate.
Well, maybe anyone listening to this episode can think about maybe
Bring your parade, put your parade, your float together and bring your parade attire, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really kind of one day's work kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I would love to see more. I mean, I used to love seeing them. Remember the local camps? The local camps used to participate.
Yeah.
And I have talked to Camp Wayfair about putting one on. I've talked to him last year and the year before. So maybe I should give a shout out to him, Jim Bob, and say, get out here and put a float in our.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who would like to see the parade become something more like it used to be.
Exactly. I think we all would. We'd like to. We have tried for several years now to get the barrel race. Do you remember the barrel race with the local fire departments? If we could give a shout out to the fire departments to get up here and let's compete and do some barrel racing on the street.
It sounds like you're setting up a list of to-do things
we do.
for yourself.
We already have.
Okay. But, there has been some problematic aspects of the parade, too. Now, right before COVID, we had this really unfortunate incidents where we had the parade marshal, a very wonderful woman, Pearlie Mae Harris, and she was followed 50 feet behind by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Kind of problematic. I mean, just before that, the South Carolina governor had taken down the Confederate flag from the State House. Mm-hmm. So history can be complicated. It can. And I mean, it may sound unfair to bring this up, but if you're going to celebrate your heritage, you have to be careful about what you're celebrating. So can I assume that a little more thought might go into that kind of thing with the parade?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, it was not comfortable for a lot of people to see that. I understand. That's really my last question is how outside of Coon Dog Day, how should Saluda be thinking about its heritage and its place in the county? Because Coon Dog Day, like you said, it kind of evolved out of a private thing. Saluda embraced it, and now we don't really have Coon Dog Day Coon Dogs as a central element of our community anymore, although plenty of people got coon dogs.
I know, I have one too.
We got one across the street from us.
And we may see in the future, that Coon Dog Day encompasses all of the history of Saluda, whether it be, Dr. Lassane Smith, whether it be the railroad, whether it be Phoebe Sullivan. Maybe Coon Dog Day will turn into more of a celebration of the town as a whole instead of just one thing. Maybe that's what we need.
I'm really glad you brought that up.
That's what we've been talking about too. Is maybe it needs to encompass all of the town and all of the history of the town, and maybe just be a big celebration.
In our town now, we have the Railroad Museum, and we've got this Rails to Trails, which is
it's beating down our door.
It's a few years away, but it's coming, and maybe we could incorporate. Combine that summer celebration we have with the railroad heritage. I don't know exactly how to do that.
I think that we had in years past, and we had put on a couple of railroad days, and I had tried to get North Fork Southern to bring one of their animated equipment up here, and it fell through a couple of times. But I did get some of the local train groups put up displays in the school for the school kids to see before they got out of school on Friday. And they love that. And that's what we need to do. I've always said we need to, this town is based upon the railroad. And we need to highlight that. And I don't know why that we don't do more. We've got the steepest standard grade in the United States. And, why don't we highlight that?
Well, I really didn't think of this whole train angle when I asked you to do this interview.
Yes, I know.
but it really makes sense. Instead of hanging on to something which is only really a small part of Saluda's history, maybe we should be pivoting towards celebrating the importance of railways in Saluda's history. And railways are really important of American history, I don't know how a parade would work. Maybe you could have floats that looked like train cars or something.
Well, they do those automated little train cars too.
Right.
There you go.
So maybe that's a whole new direction. What are your thoughts on the rest of city council's opinions on where they want to take?
I think that we've got a good group. I think that our Coon Dog Day committee this year, I think we're gonna start having our first few meetings and start, weeding things out on the new direction that we want to take it in. I think we've got a good group that's going to work well together. I mean, we've got like a group that's got, business owners, commissioners. I mean, we've got, a good representation, I guess I should say, of Saluda that's going to work toward it.
When I saw that there was going to be a meeting about Coon Dog Day, I was thinking it was going to be more of an existential, is Coon Dog Day going to persist kind of thing. But instead, there seemed to be already a consensus among the five members of the board that, no, we're going to keep Coon Dog Day. It's just a question of what is Coon Dog Day going to be. So everyone is committed to doing something.
Yes, it's moving forward.
And hopefully it can still be one of the big festivals in in Polk County.
We're going to end on a positive note, right?
Usually I get to say that.
I'm sorry, but Coon Dog Day is going to go on. And, and I would advise people, if you love Coon Dog Day, write a check to the city to keep it going. Reach out to the local coon clubs. Get them more, if you want it to stay as Coon Dog Day, you need to get out and get people to come and volunteer. We need volunteers. We can't even get enough volunteers. So
we should be able to find enough people to volunteer.
We should, but it's very hard. So
just this past weekend, it was Super Saturday down in Tryon, and that was another success, despite how cold it was in the morning. I asked the organizer, and they said, we don't have a problem with volunteers. Wow. They rely on kids a lot.
Maybe there's maybe that's our answer to our prayers, right?
All right. Well, Mayor Morgan, thanks so much for spending the time. And maybe we'll catch up on another topic in a few months.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Call me anytime.
How about that? It all started with chicken dinners. The things you learn on podcasts. That's it for this episode. If you want to get a hold of me with ideas for new episodes or guests, you can email me at jamesh@folklore.com. Thanks for listening.